I would like to thank, thought this triggered something in my mind. Like to say that ISB has been following Infosys around, but I understand Infosys is planning to open a campus in Punjab, in Mohali. So maybe you're following us around. Just kidding. But prior to, we had asked the audience.
No. We were in Mohali before ISB came there. Please. We are starting the second campus in Mohali. I mean, Mr. Ramdas Kamath, the person responsible for all of our global infrastructure is here. I'm sure he will say what I said was right, yeah.
Well, so prior to this occasion, we had asked people who would be attending today to post to give us some ideas what did they want to hear about.
Sure, of course.
And so the next few things that I bring up are really coming in some way, shape, or form from the audience. So as to get started, Mr. Murthy, you're the father of India's information technology industry, an entrepreneur, an engineer, a wealth-creating engine, a left-leaning, secular, principled, compassionate capitalist.
Well, last night you and I had a long discussion on that.
That's a mouthful. An author, an educator, a family man, a community leader, a straight shooter, a business leader, and an inspiration to all of us. How would you like to define yourself?
No, I have often, of course, you have used a long list of very kind adjectives, and I'm very, very grateful. I hope I deserve at least some of them. You know, I have often been asked this question: how would you like to be remembered? How do you define yourself? I tell them that, look, I don't want to be known as a good person, because in India, a good person is one who keeps his or her eyes shut even when he or she sees something wrong and doesn't say anything. So I'm not a good man in that sense. However, I want to be remembered as a fair person. That is, a person who follows the golden rule. That is, do unto others what you want them to do unto you. I am very open in giving honest feedback to people. Of course, I have always followed the principle: praise in public, criticize in private. But I don't pull my punches when it is a question of giving feedback. However, whatever criticism I put on the table is generally based on data and facts. So I'd like to be remembered as a fair person, not a good person in the Indian sense.
What you have just said relates to the principles that are followed at Infosys, which were generated by you and your colleagues who started up the company. So, the guiding principles at Infosys are, or some of them are, the softest pillow is a clear conscience. You can disagree with me as long as you're not disagreeable. Praise in public and criticize in private. You just said that. In God we trust. Everybody else bring data to the table. Under promise and over deliver. Best to deliver bad news to the stakeholders proactively and at the earliest. And when in doubt, disclose. A plausible impossibility is better than a convincing possibility. Sir, could you comment on the last one? A plausible impossibility is better than a convincing possibility. And what does it mean to our students?
Well, you know, at this point of time in the history of the country, where we have huge challenges in primary education, in healthcare, in nutrition. We have to do, or we have to take up initiatives whose success looks impossible. I think in some way the Prime Minister has done that. Swachh Bharat is one such initiative. It is plausible because we all want to be clean. It appears almost impossible because in a short period of time, the Prime Minister wants to erase the habit of most Indians of dirtying the places around them. For example, at least Rajendra and I and several faculty members here, and I'm sure many students here, have observed that, let's say you took a Lufthansa flight from New York to Hyderabad or Bangalore, whatever it is. The toilets are very clean between New York and Frankfurt. But the moment the flight takes off at Frankfurt for, let's say, Mumbai or Hyderabad or Bangalore, we start treating it as Indian and we start dirtying it. This is amongst the so-called reasonably well-to-do people. This is not amongst the poor. This is not amongst the illiterate ones. So therefore, the challenge of all of us accepting Swachh Bharat appears impossible. But it is plausible because it is aspirational. It is something that we know is good for all of us. Now the alternative is for us to say, we can't do anything. This is inevitable. We Indians are dirty. We'll continue to be dirty. So what? It's all right. We are probably better than Burkina Faso or something, and therefore we don't have to worry. So that is a convincing possibility. So therefore, to strive for doing something that is plausible but appears impossible, but requires a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of effort, a lot of daring, is so much better in the end than the alternative which seems convincingly possible. That's what I would say. So there have been several such situations even in Infosys.
Thank you. What Mr. Murthy just said is really what we actually need, we Indians need in terms of respect globally. Swachh Bharat is just one of them. Mr. Murthy, when all the founding members were deliberating the Infosys dream in your 1010 room, you chose respect as the founding philosophy, and by you I mean the team, rather than revenues, market cap, etc. Can you tell us why you felt this proposition was a true differentiator?
Well, it was in May 1981 that we met in my small apartment in Bandra West in Mumbai, to decide the vision for the company, the objectives for the company. One fellow said we must be the software company with the highest revenue. Somebody else said we must be the software company that is most profitable. But when it was my turn, I said, why don't we say that we will be the most respected company, not just software company, most respected company. The rationale was very simple. If you seek respect from customers, you will exceed their expectations. You will provide high quality software. You will not shortchange them. You will deliver whatever you said on time. And that builds a sense of respect, a sense of admiration for you. Automatically, they will come back as repeat customers, and you go to them and say, look, we are filing this RFP, can we include an appreciation from you? They will have no problems. If you seek respect from your fellow employees, you will treat them with dignity, you will be fair to them, you will be transparent with them, you will be honest with them, you will conduct yourself in a way that they will respect you. And that means they will become your ambassadors to get more and more good employees. And they will be happy, and if they are happy, they are more productive, etc. If you seek respect from investors, you will follow the finest principles of corporate governance, you will be transparent, you will bring bad news to them early and proactively, you will not blur the distinction between corporate resources and personal resources, you will not have any related party transactions, etc., etc. So therefore, a lot of good investors will come to you. Today probably you have about 400,000 investors. If you seek respect from your vendor partners, if you are fair with them, if you don't negotiate them beyond reasonableness, if you accept their desire for profitability as much as your desire for profitability, then in your bad time, if Infosys were to go through such a bad time, fortunately not so far, then they will be with us. They will help us. They will say, okay, you can't pay today, you can pay 60 days later, because you've been fair to us in your good times. If you seek respect from the government of the land, then it is very easy to pick up phone and call any minister, call any secretary. In India, I have had the privilege of calling the Prime Minister, the President, and they pick up the phone, they answer, even if they are not in the office. That's simply because they know that we will not take undue advantage of that kind of proximity. In fact, I have had situations where one of the government affairs, this is about 8-10 years ago, called me about a policy decision they were to take. I said, look, I am one of the industrialists, do you really want to discuss this with me? He said, no, I know you will not take advantage of it, so I have no hesitation. I just want feedback from one of the decent people. Similarly, politicians will also not mind listening to you, not mind doing what is in the good, in the interest of the industry. You should, at least at Infosys, we have never gone to the government asking for favor for the company, but for the industry. Finally, if you seek respect from the society, if you make a small difference to the society, to the poorer sections of the society, then society recognizes you and repays it, because society contributes customers, society contributes employees, society contributes investors, society elects politicians, and society contributes bureaucrats and vendor partners. Therefore, respect is the most important instrument that you youngsters should seek, because then your revenues will come, your profits will come, market cap will come, investors will come, good employees will come, good customers will come, the government will make it easy for you to operate, etc., etc. Therefore, right in 1981, I said that, and that has been the story of Infosys.
Thank you. So, this question's coming from me. Last night you told a story, and stories just stay in your heart, and this one will stay in my heart. You told a story that basically described how you evolved from being a leftist into a compassionate capitalist. Could you please help our students understand the nuances of what compassionate capitalism is and how it should be practiced?
Yeah. You know, last night Rajendra and I were at a dinner at a common friend's place, and I was talking about how I was transformed from being a confused leftist to a determined, compassionate capitalist due to an event that took place when I was in a place called Niš in what is today Serbia and then Yugoslavia. Compassionate capitalism in some way is what John McCain, the founder of Whole Foods, calls conscious capitalism. I'm sure many of you have read his book. Compassionate capitalism is about living in harmony, living in stability, and living in peace, living in fairness with the society. It is about the rich and the powerful, which most CEOs are, exercising self-restraint in allocating to themselves power and riches. There is no force more powerful than self-restraint in bringing stability to any society. Self-restraint exercised by the rich and the powerful. The poor don't have to worry much about it. The weak don't have to worry much about it, because anyway the rich and the powerful will keep them in their place. Will ensure that there are checks and balances. But what is there for who is there to control the rich and the powerful? There is really nobody who can control the rich and the powerful in any society. Therefore, self-restraint is the only thing. If in the US the CEOs are considered the least respectable, it's simply because many of them did not exercise self-restraints in their compensation, in their profligacy, in the way they led lives, in the way they blurred the distinction between corporate resources and personal resources. Compassionate capitalism is about looking at the lives of the poorest corporate employee and then saying that, look, there should be a a reasonable ratio, maybe 20-30, because yes, you have worked very hard, you have contributed significantly, and therefore you deserve some premium, no doubt about it. But it cannot be that the ratio of your compensation and the compensation of the lowest level employee is somewhere around 2,000 times. It doesn't make sense. In other words, that man or that woman will have to work for 6 years to get 1 day of your salary. So compassionate capitalism is exercising that. Compassionate capitalism is about treating every employee with respect and dignity. It is about protecting the self-esteem of every one of your employees. I am not saying, remember right in the beginning I said I am a fair person, I am not a good person, in the sense that if somebody does something wrong, I will definitely sit down with that person and give him feedback and tell him that next time if you did this, then the consequences will be serious. But you have to do it in a way that their self-esteem is not eroded. It's very, very important. You know, one of the things that I find it very strange is in India, when a person at a higher level of hierarchy, this happens throughout India, not just in South India, North India, West India, nothing like that. When they speak to the lower level people, particularly drivers and peons, etc., they always use singular. Tum, tu, all of that. So I find it very strange. Both my wife and I, we have taught our children to address everybody as op, the Kannada version of op, and of course now they speak Hindi, so they use op. The reason is very simple. That gentleman, maybe he is a peon in the office, but he is a hero to his children. His children look up to him. And you cannot take away his self-esteem just because a set of circumstances did not provide him opportunity to be like you. So this, I think, these are some of the principles. Compassionate capitalism is also about good corporate governance. It's about transparency. It's about accountability. It's about fairness. So if we keep some of these things in mind and conduct ourselves according to those rules, I believe that we as corporate leaders, we will be doing the right thing. Also, I want every one of you youngsters to remember that India is still at a very nascent stage in embracing capitalism. Therefore, every one of you has to be an evangelist for capitalism. And if you want to be an evangelist for capitalism, you have to lead as simple a life as possible. You cannot be profligate. You cannot demonstrate, in a vulgar manner your wealth. You cannot be part of what happened this morning in the newspaper, Panama paper, Panama, and all of that. I think those are all the things that all of us have to do if we want respect for capitalism amongst the people on the streets. That's what I would say.
Thank you. I first met Mr. Murthy seven and a half years ago in Singapore. He was on the Board of Trustees, and this was at a Board of Trustees meeting. And he made a comment that stayed with me. He says, if you want to lead, And if you look behind, there's nobody following you. You're just going for a walk. Now, I think in the first segment, he's talked much about the qualities of leadership and societal leadership. The next few questions I'm going to devote to leadership at Infosys. And what does it mean, in the business community, some things we should do, and some things that had a great impact on the evolution of Infosys and subsequently the Indian IT industry. So the question is that listing of Infosys in 1999 on the NASDAQ was a giant leap for Indian IT industry in general and Infosys in particular. Tell us strategically how important the decision was to Infosys.
When on the day of start of trading, the entire group had flown in. We had flown in from San Francisco. We took a red eye. We reached New York around 6:30 in the morning, and 8 o'clock was when we had to be at NASDAQ marketplace. And I was made to sit on a high stool. I don't know why they do that. Rajendra, you probably can explain why they do that. Maybe they want the CEOs to be very tentative. Anyway, they made me sit on a very high stool, and of course, they turned on all those powerful lights, and then I had to say something. So this is when I borrowed the words of Neil Armstrong, and I said, it is a small step for NASDAQ, but a giant leap for Infosys and the Indian software industry. It was a giant leap for Infosys because there were several reasons. One, we realized that the only way we can enhance the confidence of CFOs in their agreeing to Infosys being given large, mission-critical projects is if they can see our symbol on the ticker tape. That tells them that we are listed in the US, we are held accountable by SEC, and therefore we are a going concern, and that they can depend on us. Second, we had to create a currency for our out of India based employees in our desire to democratize wealth. As you know, Infosys was the first company in India which democratized wealth on a large scale. Overall, as of date, we distributed approximately about $12 billion of wealth to our employees. The third reason why we got listed on NASDAQ was simply because we wanted to enhance the credibility of Infosys in the eyes of prospective employees out there. Once again, the logic was very simple. If your name is if your symbol is on the ticker tape, and if analysts are covering you, and if you get interviewed by CNBC or many of those TV channels, then your visibility becomes higher, and therefore hopefully many good employees in your marketplaces will join you. I think these were the three main reasons why we did.
There you get it. The same principles we were talking about: respect, credibility, sharing. All three are, in the NASDAQ listing. I'm going to ask two more questions, and then I'm going to turn over to questions to the audience. So please get your questions ready. This is advance warning. If not, I may subject you guys to cold calling. All right. So as a leader and as an individual, how difficult was it to pass through the challenges of the 2008 recession? I want you to talk more about the opportunities than the challenges.
Yeah. When the founders of Infosys exited from Infosys in October 2014, by which time Vishal Sikka had come in, I gave a speech. And as part of that speech, I told the audience that between 1981 and actually between 1993, when we were listed in India, and 2014, we had a CAGR, cumulative average growth rate, of 53% in the stock price. 53%. That is year after year after year, 53%. The reason why we founded Infosys as a services company was because of a belief that India was suited to be a services country for developed markets rather than being a products company, because products are about branding, products are all about channels, they are about they're also much more risky. The second reason why we chose services was, we said, tomorrow, if there is some hugely successful product, let's take, for example, SAP. If two companies, company A and company B, were both to install SAP, they will have to necessarily come to companies like Infosys for customization. Why? Because if Rajendra and I are competing, he will have to create unique business rules vis-a-vis customers, vis-a-vis employees, vis-a-vis investors, etc., so that he wins over me. And creation of unique business rules requires services companies to create add-ons, to create a layer of customization around the standard package. And of course, most of you know that for every dollar of license revenue that SAP gets, there is anywhere between $1.8 and $3 of customization revenue, simply because of the reason that I said. Third, we said, at that point of time, and it's true even today, India had lots of reasonably well-educated but unemployed youngsters. So we said at this point in time, our focus is not on doing something that will have very high revenue productivity but very few job opportunities. It is to create more and more jobs. So in 2008, when the financial markets went into a tizzy, we realized that it would be an opportunity for Indian companies to demonstrate their value to the market. That's the time we realized when we had to build up our character, we had to demonstrate our business value addition, business value leverage that we can give to our customers. That's when we had to tighten our belts. That's when we had to learn to control our expenses. And we knew that we would be able to come back pretty soon. During the year 2010-2011, Infosys grew by 25% in revenue. So the point I'm making is, even though 2008 was a tough year from the perspective of the financial markets in the US, even though most of us experienced a dip in growth during that year because people stopped all projects. They just didn't want to spend any money because they were confused. They didn't know where they were going. But pretty quickly, our salespeople beat the pavement. They explained to customers how we are the ones that they should depend upon in those tough times, how we will give them better value for money, how we will help them control their costs, how they will get better bang for the buck. And then we took off. That's what I would say.
Thank you. All right, this is the last one coming from me, and I understand I'll be getting a ThinkPad for the Mohali. By the way, this is being broadcast in Mohali.
Oh, wonderful.
Also. So we will then shift to questions. So this is something that should be an inspiration to all of us. Understand, so in 1995, Infosys had to deal with a key customer who had a reputation for holding tough, aggressive negotiations by getting the best terms out of each vendors and then pitting them against each other. Despite the Infosys team arguing on why a fair price was in the customer's interest, such as offering arguments like investment in good people and R&D, better practices, the customer offered two stark choices: either accept their terms without question or end the contract. There were two constraints that lay ahead for Infosys. The customer contributed about 25% of the revenues, and at that time the revenues were limited. Mr. Murthy, you took a decision to end the contract. Can you comment on three things? How you and your team reached that decision? What did you learn from the episode? And what changes did Infosys make in managing business performance and balancing profitability, growth, and risk down the line?
Well, thanks for bringing it up. I think there's a lot of lesson for the youngsters in that particular decision that I took. The good thing with my younger co-founders is they would put forward their arguments. I would listen very carefully. I would mull over it and take my decision, at least as long as I was the CEO. And every one of them, without exception, they accepted that decision very gracefully, very gracefully. That's why I have said many times that if I were not in this birth but next birth, if I were to become an entrepreneur again, I would like to have the same people as my co-founders, simply because these are extraordinary people. And this indeed was the toughest decision that I took. At that point of time, we had been listed on the Indian Stock Exchange for less than 2 years. And this Fortune 10 company contributed 25% of our top line. And they contributed only 8% to our bottom line. I have always been a great fan of bottom line margins more than the top line. In fact, I don't know how many of you read the latest Business Today article on Vishal, and there one of the writer comments about my fetish about margins. I believe that the primary responsibility of a successful company is to make money hand over fist, legally and ethically. I would rather give up some top line if that brings me better bottom line, because margin is what gives you opportunity to provide better salary for your people. It provides you opportunity to invest in your infrastructure, physical, technological. It provides you opportunity to put some money in R&D. It provides you resources to go through tough times in the marketplace. In fact, my principle was that we should have 1 year's worth of salary and basic expenses, even if there is no sale during an entire year. That's the way I operated. That gave our people tremendous confidence to go into the market and then get good margins. If I had not given that confidence to our people, then they would go and compete like there is no tomorrow and quickly bring down margins. We all know how salespeople work. So at that point of time, on the last evening, on a Friday evening, when the 10, 12 senior general managers or vice presidents, senior vice presidents of this company came and said, take it or leave it, all my colleagues looked at me. And I had not told them what I was going to say, but I had listened to all of them very carefully, because they had sequestered us for 2 days, 2 full days. That is about 8 hours each day. So I was very respectful, and I told them, I said, look, if we accept what you are asking, first of all, we'll not be able to provide you the quality of service that you expect from us. We'll shortchange you. I said, according to my value system, that's not a good thing. That's not a fair thing. Today you may accept it because you know that you have negotiated us down. But tomorrow you will not be in the organization, you may not be in the organization. Somebody else will come and say, what kind of fellows are these? These are delivering less than acceptable quality of stuff, and therefore let us get rid of them. Second, I said, if we accept those kinds of rates with you, fairness demands that we accept it from other customers. There is nothing that prevents other customers from coming back to us and asking us to bring down the rates. That simply is not a good strategy. And then I said, look, you please tell us to whom you want to transfer our business, and we will take full responsibility to transfer the entire business to the vendor that you choose in such a way that you will not be inconvenienced. And they, frankly, they were shocked. They never expected anybody who was a piddly company, it was a very small company at that time, hardly $10 million, that such a silly company would stand up and say this to a $40 billion company. But we did that. That evening when I was returning, the head of our sales, who had just been appointed, whom we later fired anyway, for some other reason, he was very upset because this was his first major contract, and I had said no. So therefore he was very upset. So he said, you don't seem to be bothered about the company. You are so cool. You are not at all showing any sense of anxiety. I said, young man, I said, one fundamental principle you have to remember, not just in emphasis, even outside, particularly in your home. You are the father of the house. When there is a crisis at home, when one of the children is sick, as the father of the house or the mother of the house, you cannot get into a state of panic. You have to give confidence to everybody. You have to do the right thing. That child may have to be given injection, it may have to go through surgery, we don't know what it is. Whatever it is, you as a parent will have to give confidence to other children in the house. Therefore, this is not the time to panic. However, I said, you will have to act pretty quickly so that you don't get into this kind of a situation. I said, why do you think I'm going to the office? It's 6:30 now. Why do you think I'm going? I'm going because I have asked the marketing manager and the planning manager to stay back, and I am going to start a risk mitigation council, and we will develop a risk mitigation tool starting this evening. Then what we did was we reached the office and we started a risk mitigation council. We identified a set of 129 parameters of risk in all dimensions: customers, employees, finance, infrastructure, technology, everything. And we came to the conclusion that day, of course it took about a week or 10 days, that we will not depend on one customer, we will not depend upon one employee, etc., etc. And that's the time when we put a limit of 10% of revenue coming from an employee. In fact, most of the time, as long as till 2011, it was only 6%. The largest customer contributed only 6%. So what we did was, while it was a tough decision, it was a difficult situation, we learned quite a lot from that, and we created a risk mitigation strategy, and we ensured that the company did not go through such a situation again.
So the reason I asked this question is I had written some papers in the late 90s looking at how marketing needs to move beyond revenue and market share and look at balancing profitability, which is your margins, and growth and risk.
Yeah.
And your investor relations presentation had the PSPD model.
Yes.
I have been using,
Thank you.
I've hijacked that model for my classes.
I am honored. I am honored because that's another concept that came out as part of that. PSPDs, P stands, P stands basically for revenue growth. S stands for sustainability. Well, I'm sorry, P stands for predictability of revenues, forecasting. S stands for making sure that that predictability indeed comes true, that is sustainability, and that you deliver whatever you have promised on time to the customer, and you raise invoices on time, and you collect money on time. That is sustainability. The second P stands for profitability. You have to make sure that whatever you sell is adequately profitable. And finally, D stands for de-risking. So that's how we developed the PSPD model.
Thank you.
I have a question here, sir. True to form, it was a very instructive and extremely searingly direct and honest presentation by you, Mr. Murthy. I am Professor Kiran. I am a professor of management at Watson School. I have a quick twofold question. Referencing the MIT last year, you bemoaned the lack of innovation in India. So I would like to know where you stand on that, because the Global Innovation Index has given us a very poor 81 out of 141 countries, which says a lot about the state of innovation in India. Second, this is a kind of crystal ball gazing question. If Donald Trump were to be the president of the United States, given the protectionist and parochial messages that seem to be coming out of the campaign, what impact would that be for the Indian outsourcing story?
I'm glad you raised it. Right from the beginning, I had insisted, and we made 2 attempts, but somehow the senior management didn't believe in what we were doing. And by then, of course, I was not the CEO, therefore I couldn't push it as hard as I can. And my belief was that a corporation that has global aspiration has to be fair to global employees, has to be fair to its market. Therefore, I said we have to have citizens and permanent residents of the US adding value to us in the US, citizens and permanent residents of UK in UK, etc., etc. So in 2001, we recruited 300 youngsters from various colleges in the US. And our target was to go to 600 and then 3,000 people by 2006. But somehow, we Indians, while we can be understudies to Westerners, most of us, not the people who have gone abroad like you, Rajendra and others, who have succeeded, but you are all in a small minority. But remember here, the Indian software industry was sending people from India. Our Indian employees are uncomfortable about being bosses of Western employees. That is the reality, sorry to say. And when we recruited from Cornell, we recruited from Purdue, we recruited from Irwin, we recruited from Michigan, many places. And these fellows would take their rasam and sambar and rice to the office, they had to eat there. They would They were behaving as if they were in Bangalore or Hyderabad or something, or Kumbakonam or whatever it is. With the result, I tell you, and they would speak in Tamil or Hindi or Kannada, whatever, Telugu, whatever nonsense language. But that's not the way you conduct yourself as a global employee. The result was that all these 300 people left Infosys by the end or by the middle of 2004. But we recruited another 600 in 2004. But when this exodus started, out of 600, the previous year we had offered about 400 people, 300 joined. The next year, out of 600, not even 60 joined. So I think we will have to learn to be global managers. We'll have to become multicultural. We will have to rise above our own cultural habits if we want to succeed at a global level. So that is a big issue. Then when in 2011, I started a program called Visa Independent Global Delivery Model. I said today in the global delivery model, about 20 to 25% of the effort is delivered at customer side outside India, and about 75 to 75% in India. I said I want to reduce the value added outside India to 5% and 95% value added from India, and I want only local people to do the 5%. But you wouldn't believe that all Indian companies they guarantee visas, they guarantee green cards. The whole exercise has become like they are immigration agents. I'm sorry to say that. Indian companies behave like they are agents for their employees to send them to cross the Atlantic. This is even senior people at Infosys, they were against my idea. I said, look, you cannot run a company like this. This is not the right thing. You have responsibility to create jobs for Americans. You have responsibility to create jobs for French people. France is not that difficult because language is different. But, and in 2014 I left, and I think that program has been jumped. Because if you want to be nice to your employees, it's like child, child wants more and more candies. You can give it, and the child is happy. He'll say, oh, my father is very nice, my dad is nice. But it is bad for the child. It is bad for the entire company, right? So I am told that when I left in 2014, that Visa Independent Global Delivery Model was jumped. I think the Indian software industry, their whole argument is, no, they can never do that. They need us, therefore somehow we will handle. I personally think that we are not being fair. We have to create, those youngsters are, as important to the welfare of the globe as Indian youngsters. Therefore, we have a responsibility to create jobs for them too. That is what a true global corporation is. But that's not
Next question from here, but the following question from Mohali.
Yeah.
So, fourth row, please. Yes.
I want a lady also to ask some question, only not men. Yeah, please.
Good morning, Mr. Murthy.
See, just now I said something, but you didn't hear. Some lady also, why not?
Shall I?
Yeah.
No, you go ahead and
Please, thank you.
I'll come to you later.
I am Rajesh Kumar. I have a piece like question to you, Mr. Murthy. In global economy, we are talking about VUCA word, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. What is your piece of advice or message to our new startups or youngsters? So I just need your piece of advice.
Expand that. What is it?
VUCA. V stands for volatility, U stands for uncertainty, C stands for complexity, and A stands for ambiguity in the corporate world or in the global economy.
Yeah.
So what is your piece of advice to a new breed of entrepreneurs and new startups, please?
No, I think that's a reality. If we cannot handle ambiguity, we cannot handle complexity, we cannot handle uncertainty, we cannot handle volatility, any machine can do the job we are doing. So therefore, every youngster here has to simply accept that their success will only come if they know how to handle volatility, how to handle uncertainty, how to handle complexity, how to handle ambiguity. That is a given stuff. Now, there are methods which I am sure you have taught the youngsters in the class how to handle that. Let me look at complexity. I have always insisted on my younger colleagues to run the business using simple business rules for a very important reason. Simple rules are easy to understand, easy to communicate, easy to execute, and you cannot cheat anybody with simple rules. Therefore, if there is a complex situation, render that into a set of simple business rules, and then everybody will be able to everybody able to execute them. Second, when there is volatility, also remember there is a trend line. In every volatility, there is a trend line. Unless there are huge transients, I mean, those of you who have done Bayesian analysis can understand it. There are very few times when you have huge transients. Most often it is volatility. And volatility will still indicate to you a trend line. If you used moving averages, you get a certain trend line. So as long as you base your strategy on the trend line plus delta or minus delta, then in some way you are handling volatility. I am not saying that you handle it completely, but some way you are mitigating that risk. Third, when there is volatility, when your business gets to trough, there is a very easy way of handling, and that is everybody makes sacrifices. Everybody tightens the belt. And the leaders have to lead from the front in that. The leaders have to make bigger sacrifices than the junior people. Those of us who are traveling first class then should start traveling business class. Those who are traveling business class can travel by economy, etc., etc. Therefore, you automatically control costs. And if you control costs, then you will be able to manage better. I am not saying 100%, better, while ensuring that no helpless individual is fired from the company. Today, the model in the US is, if the corporation is not going, CEOs who get hundreds of millions of dollars, they are all there sitting comfortably, but some poor fellows who are getting $50,000, $80,000, they are all sent home. I think that is not a good model of thing. I think the CEOs should make bigger sacrifice than the guys who are getting $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 because they have mortgages, they have families, all of that, children's education, etc. So I think by combining strategy, some mathematical tools, and a robust value system, I believe that we will be in a position to handle tough situations. Of course, I am not an expert in going through the technicalities of doing this, that you have got enough professors to explain to you. But I personally believe that this combination should give enough confidence to everybody in the corporation to handle these tough times. And as I said right in the beginning, these are all why they need people like you. Otherwise, any machine can do that, right? After all, if running an organization is a finite state machine with a deterministic set of rules, then why do you need managers? You don't need it. And machines can do that. Automation can do it. That's what I would say.
I think we need to get Mr. Murthy as a professor in our classes. This was a very academic, what I would call a pracademic answer. So VUCA is a new term, but de-risking is an old term at Infosys. The next question is from Mohali, but also a lady from Mohali.
Wonderful.
Okay. This question is from Gayatri. How important is it for an organization to have an hierarchy, and what's the responsibility of the hierarchy?
No, hierarchy is not the problem. At home, we have parents, we have elder brothers, elder sisters, grandparents, uncles, aunts. So we have all learned to accept this hierarchy. You know why? Because we know one thing that is certain in the family, that there is affection behind every advice. Everybody in the family wants you to succeed. Nobody is scheming against you, at least in the immediate family. There may be some cousins, distant cousins, all of that. So,
in-laws.
but at least amongst brothers, sisters, parents, right? We all know we don't get upset with parents when they give us tough advice, simply because we know that they want us to succeed. So therefore, hierarchy per se is not the problem. It is the behavior of the people at higher level nodes vis-a-vis the lower level nodes. It is the rebellious attitude of the people at the lower level nodes vis-a-vis the higher level nodes. Yes, I can understand a 17-year-old young man or woman showing utter contempt for parents' advice, because that's the age. But remember that once you enter a corporation, you are all 22, 23, 25-year-olds. At that stage, you have to think very carefully. Therefore, there is no value in youngsters being unnecessarily rebellious. You can use data and facts and argue at any point. I am sure the senior people will listen. And the senior people in the hierarchy, as long as they show true affection for you, as long as they disagree with you without being disagreeable, as long as they don't create a situation where you lose your self-esteem, I think it should work. It's just take the family situation and extend it and let the people in the higher nodes of hierarchy behave like parents and grandparents, etc. Let the people in the lower level in the hierarchy behave like children. Everything will be all right. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm being given the signal that we are running out of time. However, we have one or two really enthusiastic people who've been waving their arms for a while.
Sure.
So we will take.
Enthusiastic people.
Okay. Yes. So
Thank you very much for your time, sir. So you enlightened us about how capitalists.
No, I thought we were going to get a question from a girl in Hyderabad. What happened?
there we have that arm going up.
Okay.
Please stand up so we can get a mic to you.
Yeah. Please.
Sorry about that.
No.
So I have two questions for you. The first
No, one at
question-
a time.
One.
Then you see, just because I said we want a girl, now you are trying to cheat the system. What?
Well, I only wish the claps were for me, so anyway. So the question is, for the kind of fair person you are and not the good person, does it invite uninvited trouble to you? Does it annoy you? Do you ever regret for being the fair person you are, and how do you tackle it?
Does it? Sorry, what was the last part?
Does it annoy you, the trouble that you get because of being fair, a person that you are? How do you tackle these situations?
No, why should it annoy me? You see, I generally, I use data and facts to come to any conclusion. I don't take any decision based on opinion. Second, generally I try and put myself in the situation of the other person before taking a decision. Am I doing unto him or her what he or she would do unto me? And that gives me a good night's sleep. That's all what matters. Why would it annoy me? It doesn't. And I'm not looking for everybody saying that he is the nicest human being. No.
All right, one last question.
Just one last question.
Okay.
Just one question.
Please.
So that we are here in ISB today now, and that we have Infosys right in front of the campus, do you feel like paying a visit to the company?
Paying visit to the company?
Yes, Infosys.
No, I'll tell you. Even though all the founders have totally dissociated from the company, however, in areas where I can add some value to the company, I will never hesitate. For example, I came yesterday because the chief minister wanted me to represent Infosys at the IT policy release function. So Vishal is not in the country, and I said, sure, why not? So as far as we are concerned, we are always there to provide any help to Infosys, but Infosys has to ask us. We will not do it proactively. That's one. Second, see, we unfortunately, according to SEBI, we are still called promoters, even though we wrote in August 2014 saying that, look, we are not on the board, we have no responsibility, nothing. Please remove us from this silly term called promoters, which is only an Indian nomenclature. Nowhere else in the world it is there. But they have still not been able to do. They say, no, you have to sell your shares down to 1%. I think that is silly. It is, Infosys is like our child. We cannot do that. So therefore, insofar as value system of the company is concerned, insofar as reputation of the company is concerned, certainly I will be proactive in giving my message to the board as well as to the CEO on these issues. But I will do it in private. I will not do it in public, but I will definitely do it, because according to SEBI, I am culpable should there be something something that goes wrong with Infosys. If I was not a promoter, then I have no issue. They can do whatever they want. That's what I would say. And of course, I stayed on the campus before coming here. So,
All right, last question.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Murthy. I'm Akash Jain from CII Young Indians Hyderabad chapter. So my question to you is, how is Infosys gearing up in the cloud computing space with other IT companies as the competition is heating up in this segment?
no, I think Infosys does a lot of work. It's been doing for several years now. It's nothing new. Cloud is an old idea now. Infosys has worked with AWS. It has worked with Azure. Azure, of course, is up and coming. And these are the two main cloud platforms, as you know. So, there are a lot of projects they are doing. It is not yesterday's concept. It's several years now. So, absolutely, there is no issue at all.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So, on behalf of the audience, the students, ISB, our faculty, we are really, really delighted with our conversation.
Thank you very much.
And this has been very inspiring, and you've set the tone for everybody who will follow in your footsteps as the honorary fellow. Thank you again so much.
Thank you. You've been very kind.
Thank you.